Live from New York, this is WIUR Radio.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Man, I've had a rough weekend. Don't really want to get into that. But honestly, my Super Bowl Sunday was absolutely incredible. Let me be honest with you. My box hit for the first time ever. That goes for my dad, too. First time ever. But I'm your host, Landon. Let's get into Empire State of Sports. How about that? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Empire State of Sports. I'm your host, Landon, and tonight we are not starting with a box score. We're starting with a lesson for all 32 NFL teams. Because what happened last night in Super Bowl 60 is bigger than just the Super Bowl result. It's bigger than Sam Darnold, bigger than the Seahawks and the Patriots. And I had this sentence written down last night. I'm watching the pregame at about 5 o'clock, and I wrote down one sentence that I think explains the situation of the NFL perfectly, not just Sam Darnold, but the whole NFL. And you could ask me, Landon, how does one sentence encapsulate 32 NFL teams? And I want you guys to think about this sentence. I want you guys to really ponder on this little sentence I wrote for you guys. Quarterbacks don't just fail. They fail somewhere. Let's flash back 7 years ago. A long time ago, when the Jets are, as always, it seems like, looking for the quarterback that will bring them to the promised land for the first time since the 60s. No, never happens, but 2018, 4 quarterbacks in that draft class, widely considered to be one of the best quarterback draft classes of all time going into the 2018 NFL draft. And that's because you had Baker Mayfield, who's coming off a Heisman, who went number 1 overall to Cleveland, Sam Darnold, who went 3rd to the New York Jets. And I remember when they drafted Sam Darnold was the safe pick that year. Josh Allen went 7th. And you're probably thinking the superstar that we know that is Josh Allen went 5 picks lower than Sam Darnold, someone who bounced around 3 different teams, San Francisco, then Minnesota, and now Seattle, before becoming Super Bowl champion. You're probably thinking Josh Allen really went below Sam Darnold? Yes, he did. And Lamar Jackson went 32nd to the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, the guy that everyone thinks is probably the best athlete, I won't say quarterback, but athlete in the NFL, hands down, manning the helm. And he went 32nd overall. At this time, as I mentioned, Sam Darnold was considered the safest prospect in the NFL draft. Not the flashiest, not the strongest arm, definitely not the fastest, but the safest. But then you get to New York. And it only took 3 years to turn a top prospect into someone no one wanted, into an outcast. Through 38 games with the New York Jets, Sam Darnold had a 59.8% completion percentage, 45 touchdowns to 39 interceptions. Absolutely embarrassing numbers for Sam Darnold with the B-tier team in New York, the New York Jets, and 98 sacks behind an offensive line that was, let's face it, bottom tier. The Jets offense also finished bottom 5 in scoring in 2 of those 3 seasons with Sam Darnold. Now, here's where things got really interesting to me. Because I'm a New York sports show and I like to unpack the greatest sports news in the entire Empire State. That's right. I wanted to make this a Darnold narrative. And things really get interesting when you look at Josh Allen the prospect that everyone pretty much had a consensus had the raw ability, but probably not the quarterback ability, the decision making that really separate whether or not quarterbacks make it in this league. And when you look at Josh Allen in Buffalo, year one, he had a 52% completion percentage. And in 3 years, Brian Dable was able to bring that to over 69%. So Josh Allen developed, but Sam Darnold regressed. So what changed? Was Allen just all of a sudden magically talented? No, that's not what happened. Was Darnold magically bad? No, he was bad because of the New York Jets. Let's face it. But the difference really was one got development while the other was really just fighting for their QB survival in Sam Darnold. And the Jets didn't evaluate the quarterback position wrong. Let me just stop where I am quickly and dive into that statement because I think that statement holds a lot of power. The Jets never evaluate the quarterback position wrong. They just develop them wrong. And they had 3 different coordinators in 3 seasons with Sam Darnold. Adam Gase, no real offensive line, no real weapons for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was pretty much thrown in there and expected to do it all himself. And this is a problem that I feel like I mentioned even on here about how I really despise the fact that quarterbacks are thrown into games so early and expected to perform because that's damaging when it comes to QB development. To be honest with you. But let's fast forward because I've really been talking about Darnold a long time. Darnold goes 3-0 in this playoffs, 0 interceptions, and leads Seattle to a championship run. Not only did he do all of that, but let's rewind even to Sam Darnold's tenure in New York, where he was caught on a live stream of ESPN where he was mic'd up and he happened to let out, "I'm seeing ghosts." And it really haunted Sam Darnold his whole career. The whole seeing ghost thing was kind of the nail in the coffin for Sam Darnold. And it was unfortunate that's the way things ended because I feel like people don't talk about mental health of athletes enough. And I could just imagine what that did to Sam Darnold's mental health. But what did he do? He recollected himself and he knew that deep down in him, he had the ability to be Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold. So I'm going to ask the question that New York really doesn't want to hear. What if Sam Darnold was never a bust? What if it was just the system? Because this is not just a Sam Darnold story. This is a pattern for the New York Jets. The Jets really are where quarterbacks go to die. That's going to make a really good soundbite. I'm sorry, I had to pause there. But talking about Jets quarterbacks in the past, obviously you have Mark Sanchez, who coming up is thought to be one of the best young talents in the entire NFL. And then he collapses out of nowhere. Zach Wilson, the successor to Sam Darnold in New York, the same story, maybe worse. I think, when you have coaching turnover, when you don't have an identity, the Jets start to rebuild quarterbacks from where they start and not where they want to be. I think that's a major problem with the New York Jets. And then the whole nation watched Super Bowl 60 last night. Whether or not you believed it was a good game, it was a good game to me. Thought it was a nice little slugfest. Sometimes I don't like teams running up the score. I'm going to be honest with you. Might be a hot take, but I liked what we saw out there. Seattle 29, New England 13. I'd like to extend an apology out to Kevin Wildes because I know he's in mourning today about his New England Patriots, who all year I have to give him credit was backing this New England Patriots team when no one seemed to believe in them. He kept saying, "We're on the doorstep of destiny." I think my biggest question is, what is the doorstep of destiny until I was painting a door, which was really cool. I'm sad to see the door go. It's probably getting smashed to pieces as we speak. But that was sad. But going back to what we saw on the field, 335 yards for Seattle. The Patriots had less yards than Bad Bunny walked in his halftime show. Craziness. I'm pretty sure the streaker that ran on the field also had more total yards than the Patriots. And I don't hold this against Drake May, but going back to Sam Darnold, because this was a huge subject for me, was touching on Sam Darnold here in New York. He was able to be the difference maker, not because of the flashiest passes or airing the ball out 100 yards to Jackson Smith and Jigba like we've seen at times this year. And we all know Sam Darnold can air it out. The difference was the Seahawks had 0 turnovers while the Patriots had 3. This was a really clean game in the first half. I think a really clean game up until the fourth quarter. I think there are only 3 penalties in total up until that point. And that was really refreshing to watch. Let's be honest. I think we've all gotten tired of these referees in all major sports being a little too lenient with the whistle. So that was really good to see. But let's talk about Sam Darnold again. What Sam Darnold was able to do was not talent. He was able to fit into the scheme that Mike McDonald built in his first year. And Seattle didn't ask Darnold to be heroic. All they asked him to be was stable. And that's what the NFL actually rewards in January. But tonight, or today afternoon, we're going to break down the Super Bowl, the Jets, quarterback debate, the Knicks, the Rangers, and yes, the Yankees roster construction problems. Live from the Murphy Center, I'm Landon Popovic, giving you the latest in all of New York sports. But first, let's talk about the game that happened last night, Super Bowl 60. I mentioned the score. I would say for most of the game, Seattle was never really blowing the Patriots out. And I was really harsh on everything that happened. But, you know, you talk about the turnovers. Rushing yards were huge in this game. And it's something I looked at before. And I thought Seattle's one of the best rushing teams in the league. The Patriots are one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. I didn't say anything. Went on Gale Zone, didn't even bring it up. Instead, I was talking about how Drake May was going to have the performance of his life and start a new dynasty, which I was dead wrong about, to be honest. I was dead wrong. I wish I was right. I do. I wish Drake May was able to win. But the difference maker in this entire game, in this entire postseason, January really rewards patience and more than talent. And when you have 3 turnovers against Seattle's 0, it's a recipe to losing games instead of winning them. And one thing I was really nervous about actually was Sam Darnold turning the ball over. You talk about who was across the field in Super Bowl 60, it was the New England Patriots, who was famously known for seeing ghosts against. Sam Darnold hadn't had any turnovers. I really thought, and I think it has to do with what I saw Sam Darnold do here in New York on the biggest stage, because New York's the biggest stage you get outside of a championship game. And he wasn't able to perform. I think I should have known better when Sam Darnold was able to produce the way he did against the great Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams, but I just brushed that off. And it was silly. It was silly to brush that off. And a huge advantage for the Seahawks in this game was special teams. Obviously, Kenneth Walker wins Super Bowl MVP. Probably should have been Myers, the kicker, who had 5 field goals last night. And when you talk about the punter for the Patriots, he was not nearly as good as the punter for the Seahawks, who was able in clutch time to put a ball on the 1-yard line with everyone coming at him. I mean, it was really impressive. And it's hard to get those impressive moments on special teams, but that was really impressive. And the Pats, I mean, punting on 4th and manageable around midfield while down only 2 scores. I didn't really understand the decision by Mike Vrabel. And I want to backtrack a statement I made last week that the Patriots had the definitive coaching advantage in Mike Vrabel. I don't think I gave enough credit to what Mike McDonald did in his first year with Seattle. Seattle was doing the smart thing and taking points and instead of forcing 4th down attempts. I think that was smart for them, but the conversation going into this game was Drake May had to be the difference maker, and he was unable to do so. But let's look at Seattle's half the ball just a little bit more, dive deep into this. So Sam Darnold was 19 for 38, had 202 yards, a touchdown, and a passer rating in the mid-70s. Obviously, not great. I don't think any quarterback's line was ever going to be great this Super Bowl. And to think that this was going to be an offensive explosion by either side, or even an offensive duel where Drake May and Sam Darnold are just going back and forth, was silly. Because if you'd watch football all year, you would know that these are the 2 best defenses going head to head. It's going to be a low-scoring game. And you look at the playoffs as a whole for Sam Darnold. In the divisional round, he had a decent game, but the game that really, I think, set Sam Darnold as one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL was that NFC Championship performance where he went 25 for 36, had 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 127 rating. That was something Sam Darnold's been able to do all year, but something he wasn't really able to do against the Los Angeles Rams, who were the divisional foe of the Seattle Seahawks and Sam Darnold. And then you talk about the regular season, what Sam Darnold's able to do in Seattle. He's able to run a top 3 scoring offense while having the best defense in football. It's going to be really hard to beat a team like that. And Sam Darnold proved that he didn't have to do it all himself in the Super Bowl with how he played. He didn't play spectacular, as I mentioned. He played quarterbacking football. Was able to not turn the ball over, but yes, he didn't have the prettiest stat line, but they won the game. And I want to end talking about Seattle's side of this game, asking, is this a system QB we saw or just a matured quarterback? And my answer to that, we saw a matured quarterback. We saw Sam Darnold emerge as a star in this league this entire season. And this is why I think people should never doubt themselves. Because if Sam Darnold had doubted himself, I don't think he would be where he is today. That's pretty easy to say. If Baker Mayfield had doubted himself, I don't think he would even be in the league anymore. This is a guy everyone counted out. And it feels bad to be counted out. And Sam Darnold was able to put that all aside and just play his game. Something I think Seahawks fans are going to be very excited for. But going to the Patriots and Drake May, who had an absolutely abysmal game. Drake May went 25 for 41, had 252 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, as well as a lost fumble. Just a bad game for Drake May. I can't say I don't believe in Drake May anymore off of that. I think it's silly to count a 23-year-old out. And to call the Patriots fraud still bothers me. Because what Mike Vrabel did was take a team that was 3-14 to 14-3. Why are we discrediting how impressive that is for both Drake May and his coach? But this was a rookie QB in a Super Bowl where, unfortunately, they had the disadvantage on the defensive side of the ball. They had the disadvantage in pretty much every aspect. So the game relied on Drake May, a guy who's had a really long season in his second year. He's taken a lot of hits back there, over 70 behind the line. He took 3 sacks on Sunday, which was less than I thought he would take. Or no, he didn't take 3 sacks. He took like 6. Unless I had in my notes wrong. He took like 6 sacks on yesterday, and that you can't win taking 6 sacks. And it was something that I knew would possibly pose an issue for New England in the Super Bowl, and it did. Because Drake May was really unable to overcome all of the disadvantages he had. I think just looking forward a little bit, I think the NFL really has to question the way they not only value quarterbacks, but the way those quarterbacks are developed. Because Sam Darnold taught me that anyone can be the hero of their own story if that's what they believe deep down. And Sam Darnold never gave up. He never let all of the complications he had get to him. He never let the outside noise affect how he played. He was a guy that was put in an unfortunate situation with the Jets. A situation that it seems like no up-and-coming quarterback wants to go to. And it's time for the Jets to sit back and analyze what's went wrong. I'm not talking about what's went wrong the past few years. I'm talking about what's went wrong as a franchise. Because this easily could have been the Jets hoisting the Lombardi Trophy with Sam Darnold. being the leader of that team. And I know it's painful for Jets fans. They had to watch a guy that their team told them to believe in, and they bought into it. They buy into everything this team feeds them. And it's not anything against Jets fans, but it's quite the opposite, actually, because I really admire how loyal Jets fans are. And it's unfortunate the way this organization is run. It's unfortunate that they gave up on this kid so early. And I really hate the fact that this is not just a pattern for the Jets. I feel like I'm bashing the Jets a lot. And rightfully so. Their reject first round draft pick is now a Super Bowl champion just a few years later. But the problem really is with the fact that teams everywhere expect a quarterback they draft to immediately replicate the stats they had in college, which is really just ridiculous to think about, because when has a baseball player come up and people have immediately been like, yeah, he's going to replicate what he did with guys half the size that he's facing now? Like, no. I think it's a common misconception, not only amongst fans, but amongst organizations, which is really the problem here, that organizations buy into the same things fans do, that the quarterbacks are automatically going to be the absolute definition of a franchise quarterback, which is not always the case. I think this Super Bowl proved that. You had Drake May, who, let's face it, struggled his rookie year. Yeah, he had a good rookie year, but he struggled. This was a quarterback class with Drake May that everyone's was already giving up on. And when you talk about that quarterback class, you got to talk about Caleb Williams, who what he did this year was absolutely incredible too with the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, a franchise that has been an endless turmoil and dysfunction similar to the Jets, gets led by the guy they drafted first overall the year before and takes them farther than they ever would have thought with Ben Johnson. I think it's just a learning lesson to the NFL to not give up on quarterbacks early, to not read into everything and think that just because a quarterback has a bad first 3 years that they're never going to pan out. And then you go and rush to draft someone that no one really believed in. And Zach Wilson. It's disappointing that the Jets would go and do that. But I think I've talked about the Super Bowl enough. And obviously, I thought it was a great game last night. I think the biggest story that came out of that game will be Sam Darnold for a long time. I think people are going to be talking about this as the Sam Darnold emergence game as possibly a Hall of Famer. But after this, we'll be back talking about the New York Knicks, who had a rough game on Friday but bounced back against Boston. What do the Knicks do now that they didn't land Giannis? Coming up next on Empire State of Sports. I'm your host, Landon. Stay tuned.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack.
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi with
To seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
the line drive in the left field around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR sports radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. I had to wake you all up. Now you all don't listen to those ads. You could act like you do. But swinging things over to the Garden, New York Knicks had their 8-game win streak snapped against the number 1 Detroit Pistons. And just, let's face it, just a bad game for New York all around. A bad game for Jalen Brunson, especially. Jalen Brunson really not able to get anything done against Detroit. This is a huge question for Knicks fans, for NBA fans, on if the Knicks are going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Pistons. I get it. It's a different team than it was last year. I get that they are a defensive mastermind. And let's talk about former Gale real quick, just on the Detroit Pistons, who was able to drop 18 points in Danish Jenkins. Danish Jenkins had 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists for the Detroit Pistons. Just a great sight for Jenkins, at least. Not a good sight for the Knicks. I think there are some things to be worried about. 100%. I think the biggest thing I'm worried about not in that game was the lack of offense, but the lack of rebounding in that game. The lack of rebounding from Mitchell Robinson. Towns obviously didn't play after he had that whole incident where the top of his eye split open. Had to get that checked out. He had some cool goggles on against the Boston Celtics. Pulled out the old school goggles that the players used to wear. I think they kind of look goofy, I'm going to be honest with you. They were talking about how tough Cat looked in those. I was like, tough is a weird way to put it. I don't think Karl Anthony Towns looked tough with goggles. But Knicks are top 5 in offensive ratings their past 10 games, averaging around 123 points. Really good performance from the Knicks these past few games. And the Knicks were a team I was really worried about. I was worried about Mike Brown's ability to have this team win night in and night out, because I saw them have a slide in December and early January. My dad texted me. He looked like the old 6-man Kurt Rambis for the Lakers. Yeah, he did. They actually were the old goggles, funny enough. They had them in storage at MSG, if you didn't know. They were the old goggles. Can't remember from what player. Wasn't really my era of basketball. They did mention it on the ESPN broadcast. New York native Ryan Rucco on the call for that one. But late game, I think this Knicks team has shown the ability over the past 10 or so games to be able to play a close, tight matchup, which is something that every Knicks fan was worried about coming into this year, because in the playoffs, you're going to be playing those tight matchups almost every game, especially if you go toe-to-toe with the Pistons. And I think Mike Brown's struggling on whether or not he wants this team to have a defense first mentality. Because when I watched the Boston game, they looked really good on defense. But it looked like a different game plan than they had versus the Pistons, which quite obviously they're two completely different teams. Knicks facing the new Celtic Vukovic, while the Knicks had their own new player, Jose Alvarado, the Brooklyn-born guard. I know. Before I get into Alvarado, let's talk about Giannis. Y'all liked that title last week. I know you did. I put Giannis to the Knicks in that title in all caps to get you guys in here. Just to tell you that it was never going to happen. And I was right. God, I like when I'm right. I was right. Giannis Antetokounmpo was never going to go anywhere. To think otherwise, kind of silly. Foolish, if you would. And I just really dislike the way the NBA is in specific, where it seems like players have the ability to choose what team they're going to play for without hitting free agency. Seems like the pattern is sign an extension with a team, request a trade from said team instead of testing the free agency market. Really different than baseball. And I think a lot of that has to do with LeBron James. Ooh, I'm going to like this conversation. I didn't even plan this one, but LeBron James really ruined the NBA when you think about it. He's unable to win by himself. So what does he do? He packs his bags and requests a trade to Miami, and he's gone. But Cleveland forgave him for coming back and winning with them. But that's really what ruined everything, because when you think about the narrative of who's the GOAT, MJ or LeBron, what's the main argument for MJ fans like myself? 6 rings. How are you going to beat 6 rings? And LeBron was like, well, if this is going to be the one thing that holds me back from being the GOAT, I'm going to win a bunch of rings and request a trade to go to Miami. How about you do it yourself? I get it. MJ had Pippen. He had Rose. He had a lot of people on that team, but MJ was the one taking the clutch shots at the last moment. But what LeBron James really did was create a culture that the only thing that mattered to players was winning. It wasn't about winning for the team that they were drafted by or the team that they came up with. It became something that really didn't value loyalty whatsoever. Loyalty. Big topic on this show, if you don't know. Talking about how that really now in 2026, the environment that we're in the NBA. Let's look at what happened this deadline. James Harden, the Clippers, looks like things are going their way now, right? That's what you think. They started to win games, started to look like they might actually contend. And then what does James Harden do? I want out. Players have the ability in the NBA to say, I want out, and that's it. That's the end of the discussion. It's really backwards when you think about it. You're an employee for an organization. They're not employed by you. But I guess it was refreshing for me to see that Giannis said, yeah, I want to get traded. But his problem was he didn't say it the right way. You got to say it in, I want to go to New York, and that's the only thing I'm going to do, and I'm not playing for you. And then the thing that bothered me with the whole Giannis saga, I'm going to stop talking about it now because to me it's dead news. He goes on social media and he posts, I'm not leaving. I was never leaving. Like he didn't request a trade just a few weeks ago. That's the problem. People believe everything that these athletes and higher ups say. So Bucks fans will probably be content with what Giannis said. That he wants to be a Buck for the rest of his career, etc., etc. Until this summer when his name is yet again in trade rumors, but going to the player the Knicks traded for, Jose Alvarado. Alvarado at his first game against Boston was mic'd up against ESPN, or for ESPN against Boston. So was Vukovic, new addition for them. Alvarado. I think the story of what Alvarado is going to bring to this Knicks team is defense. Something I was frustrated in with that loss to the Pistons. Unfortunately, Alvarado not able to get out to Detroit in time for that tip-off. And it gives Mitchell Robinson, a guy off the bench, who plays the guard position, let's just remember, that's leads the league or is among the top in the league in steals. That's huge. Gives the team second chance opportunities. And that's something Mitch has really been doing all by himself for this orange and blue crew team. And yeah, you know, Alvarado's first game, you look at it, they're able to handily defeat Boston 120 or 111-89. Got a little ahead of myself. I thought it was worse than that. But I forgot. The Knicks started rotating in their bench at the end of the game. Obviously, you know how the NBA works. Not going to explain that to you, but he is going to add to the Knicks what the Golden State had in GP2. He's a chaos player. And if you look at every championship team, they all have a chaos player. And that's what Alvarado is able to bring. In 25 minutes in his first game, pretty solid outing, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, all-around game. He also had 2 steals, which obviously is his bread and butter. So Alvarado already making an impact for the Knicks, already seeing that transition on the court. I love this move. I do. I think it's all the Knicks really had to do. And to think they needed a star in Giannis is foolish. I just saw an Indiana team redefine college football. Let's redefine the NBA. All right. So when we come back, talk about the Rangers a little bit. Had a noteworthy trade. I'm Landon Popovic from Empire State of Sports.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
Yo, we're back. We're back. Hope you enjoyed the little ad there. Moving to the other team that plays at the Garden, the world's most famous arena, the New York Rangers, making headlines for the wrong reasons yet again. They traded veteran Artemi Panarin for a 3rd-round pick and a mid prospect. I'm really disappointed. I think that's the best way to put it. I was pretty gutted when I saw what happened with Panarin. I talked about how I really disliked the way the Rangers handled the whole situation with Panarin this deadline. where they pretty much didn't give him a send-off, just ripped the jersey off his back and shipped him off to the highest bidder. That's the thing. They weren't the highest bidder. The Seattle Kraken were the highest bidder. But Panarin didn't want to go there. And when you have something in your contract that lets you decide where you go, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with Panarin saying he doesn't want to go to Seattle because let's be honest, who's from Seattle? I don't know. But this is a Rangers team that has an aging core. Several of their highest paid players are around 30 years old. And Chris Drury decided it was time to get younger. It was time to change the roster construction on this team. Time to change pretty much everything to do with the New York Rangers. Redefine a new era. But that's not what Chris Drury tried to feed Rangers fans. Chris Drury tried to tell me, a kid who in third grade, mind you, cried for the first time about sports because the Rangers lost to the Kings in the Stanley Cup Finals. And what do we do 12 years later to 21-year-old me in the year 2026? We trade away the player that really turned around the attitude around this Rangers team. The Rangers were in the middle of a rebuild. And he chose to come here for less money than the New York Islanders offered him. And that felt good. That felt good for someone to choose the Rangers for less money. And he had an incredible run with us. Multiple seasons of over 100 points. Pretty much carried the Rangers offense on his back in this tenure. But now that he's gone, even before he left, Chris Drury tried to tell fans, me, that this is a retool, not a rebuild. I think it's the biggest load of malarkey I've ever heard. I never thought I'd see a world where the New York Rangers are run significantly worse than the New York Knicks. A team that when I was growing up, talk about generational turmoil, that was the New York Knicks for me. I didn't watch basketball for a really long time because of the New York Knicks. I had no interest in being a basketball fan because of the atmosphere in New York. I chose to really follow the Rangers. And now the story has really switched. Artemi Panarin's gone. He's in LA. By the way, Dad, can't believe we have tickets to that game. And then I have tickets to the first game that Panarin will be back with the Kings. And not only are we going to that game, but we're attending that game with Kings fans who already have enough bragging rights over us for 2014. I can't put a finger on where the Rangers go from here. Chris Drury signed an extension last year, so he's not going anywhere. I know fans want him gone. I know that he hasn't done anything here, but we have to accept it. Like, as a Giants fan, I accept Joe Shine as a GM. But there are ways around Chris Drury. There are ways for the Dolans to step up, and I hate that. I hate that I'm even putting that out there because the Dolans have been probably the worst thing for either the Knicks or Rangers franchise. And then when you talk about the Cleveland Guardians too, remember that's owned by another Dolan out there, and they're a miserable franchise too. So me saying that the Dolans have to step up, I like what they did with the Knicks. So I have some sort of faith that they're able to replicate that with the Rangers. I do. I think the Dolans care, but they have a really, really weird way of showing it. Because it seems like whenever they touch any franchise that they have ownership stake in, the franchise immediately takes a step back. And quite honestly, they probably have a share into why the Knicks got to the level they did and how bad they were. Oh, elbow slipped off the desk. But for Rangers fans, we got to stick in there. We got to stick in there, support our guys like we've always done. There's no other way this team's going to get better. Can't just expect this team to get better overnight. Can't expect a new GM tomorrow. We can't expect all these aging guys on our team like Zibanejad, the Foxes, and all of them to be gone in one night. And let's be honest, the Rangers set themselves back last offseason by acquiring JT Miller. And what has JT Miller done as captain? I don't know. To me, I don't think he's done anything. I don't even know how he has the C on his chest. The JT Miller trade was always one that made me scratch my head because the Rangers obviously weren't cup contenders last year. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. Unfortunate. All right. Before I sign off, I want to talk about the Yankees because Brian Cashman can say they're not running it back all he wants. We have young guys in the system. We got 35-year-old Garrett Cole coming off the IL in a few months. It's the same team. Y'all signed Paul Goldschmidt the other day. It's the same team. It makes me laugh because how can you tell me that this team isn't the same? We got Trent Grisham back. We got Paul Goldschmidt back. That lineup is the exact same. There's no debating that. Rotation might be a little different with Ryan Weathers, but how long is Ryan Weathers really going to be in that rotation? I don't think long at all as a Yankee fan. I think he's just there to hold that spot until Carlos Rodon and Garrett Cole are back in late April, early May. And the Paul Goldschmidt signing in and of itself, I didn't see the financials on it. All I saw was it was a one-year deal, which I'm okay with. Believe me, I'm okay. I think that the Yankees needed a lot of right-handed help in that lineup. They were very left-handed heavy, and you took Paul Goldschmidt out the equation, and things got really, really bad when you talked about right-handed depth on this Yankee team. And now Paul Goldschmidt's back. The one thing that makes me hesitant on this deal is that we can't be playing Paul Goldschmidt every day. We can't be acting like he's MVP Paul Goldschmidt, like he's the same Paul Goldschmidt that was in Arizona, because he's not. We played this game with DJ LeMahieu last year, and why it worries me is the fact that Aaron Boone is Mr. Loyalty. And I can't have Paul Goldschmidt starting games if he's batting 100 with 10 home runs in September. 10 home runs might actually be wishful thinking, now that I think about that. But talking about this Yankees roster construction just before I sign off and, we get things wrapped up, talked Rangers, talked Knicks, talk Jets, talk Yankees. And if you noticed, every single conversation has an underlying problem tonight. Not talent, but direction. The Rangers have talent, but don't know if they're rebuilding or contending. The Knicks are good, but don't know if they're championship good. Hesitated at the deadline. Yankees have stars, but flawed roster construction. Saw that come to light against the Blue Jays, same team. And the Jets still don't know how to build a quarterback. New York sports right now isn't failing because of the players. It's failing because of decisions. The Seahawks just won a Super Bowl with structure. Patriots got there with discipline. Not splash moves, not headlines, not hype. Tired of the sensationalized sports landscape we're in. I got there with plans. And that's the difference. Championship teams don't just collect talent, they create environments where talent works. New York teams keep chasing the results instead of fixing the process. Talk about a Rangers team that's process is absolutely broken, going through, it seems like 10 head coaches in 2 years. And until that changes, you're just going to keep seeing the same thing from New York sports. Close seasons, what ifs, off-season hope, but not parades. I haven't been to a parade since I was 4 years old, since the Yankees won in 2009. I want a parade. We'll keep watching. We'll keep talking. And I'll keep telling you exactly what I see. I'm Landon. This has been Empire State of Sports. Thank you for tuning in. See you next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Live from New York, this is WIUR Radio.